Turn it on Cliff Live tonight. Latest news, it's feeling right. Kamala speech so tight, yet no answers in our sight. Shouting wild and loud, felon tales beneath the cloud. Cats and dogs beware, my friend. Springfield rumors never end. Cliff Live bringing news to you. Tune in now, it's fresh and true. Politics with humor strong. Stay informed and sing along. Headlines coming fast and free. Comedy in what we'll see. Kamala dances round the press. Questions left in quiet stress. Trump's wild claims make us think. Cats and dogs on Pizza Rink. In Ohio, who can tell? News and laughter mix so well. Cliff Live bringing news to you. Tune in now, it's fresh and true. Politics with humor strong. Stay informed and sing along. Trump is shouting wild and loud. Felon tales beneath the cloud. Cats and dogs beware, my friend. Springfield rumors never end. Cliff Live bringing news to you. Tune in now, it's fresh and true. Politics with humor strong. Stay informed and sing along.
All right, there we go. There we go. Let me set up my monitor. And YouTube's already trying to stop my stream. Of course. Never fails. All right, there we go. Here. And where are we at? Which? Wait for the chat to come in. I don't know what it is, but sometimes my my notifications have been going out like really slow. I don't know what's going on with it. What's going on, Chad? How have you been this past week? I don't know why YouTube's saying they're not receiving enough data. Should be fine. Not receiving enough data to maintain smooth streaming. Yeah, my OBS is saying we're all good. I wonder if I have Steam on or something. Trying to download an update or something. No, no, nothing over there. All right, very good, very good. I think YouTube's just being stupid, like it normally does. There we go. do this. I'm gonna watch that Kamala interview with CNN and Anderson Cooper. I have not seen that video yet, but people said it was kind of funny, so I'm gonna check it out. A lot of crazy commentary on it. I don't know if you guys saw, but Trump was also on the Joe Rogan Experience, and it was a pretty good interview. I watched it; it wasn't that bad. He's more intelligent than people let on. Let's just say that. And he was able to hold himself in a 3-hour conversation, almost 3 hours. It was like 10 minutes short or so. But it was really good. I kind of wish that they would get Kamala on there. But now that that interview came out, I doubt she's going to go on there because they spent a good hour just talking shit about her. And if she did go on there, they would kind of have to explain, or at least Joe Rogan would have to explain what he was talking about. Yeah. We still have volume, right? No, last time I tried this, the volume was out. I'm gonna make sure we got this right. We good? It's like my chat's delayed or something. Anywho, I'm probably gonna jump right into this. Let me pull this up here. So this is like a 7-part interview that CNN did with Kamala Harris. It's supposed to be hosted by Anderson Cooper. And it's a big town hall. They're going to be asking all kinds of questions. Just kind of curious to see how she's going to hold her own in this one.
And welcome. We are live from
That's
Chester
Anderson
Township,
Cooper.
Pennsylvania, Delaware County, one of the presidential town hall. Assembled a group of 32 Pennsylvania voters who say they are still undecided or persuadable. All of them are registered to vote. Some cast votes for Joe Biden in 2020.
These guys are not undecided. This is a CNN picked panel. I don't know who they're trying to kid here.
Others for Donald Trump. Some didn't vote at all. And for some, this is their first election. Many are leaning right now to one candidate or another, but they all say they have yet to make their final choice. Now, we found these voters working with a nonpartisan research firm, as well as business and religious groups, universities, and other civic organizations. These voters are asking their own questions tonight, selected by CNN to cover a variety of topics. You may see them holding a piece of paper when they're asking their question. It has their question on it. That is a question they have come up with. It has not been edited in any way by
Sure it is. Yeah. Like you didn't just pass those out.
CNN. We also invited former President Donald Trump to participate in a town hall or a debate. He declined. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Vice President Kamala Harris.
Okay.
Madam Vice President, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks. You have a mic right here.
Madam Vice
Thank you so much.
Good evening,
President.
everyone. Good evening.
Thanks so much for being with us. We're going to get to the audience in just a second. I want to start by asking you, though, for weeks you have been calling Donald Trump unstable, unhinged. You've called him dangerous. You've quoted General Milley recently, who called him a fascist. Today, you quoted General Kelly, who said that Trump repeatedly praised Hitler.
Yeah.
But there are tens of millions of Americans right now who have heard all those things and they don't buy it, or even if they do, they're still going to vote for Donald Trump. He's arguably more popular now than ever. You have 13 days to go. What do you say to those voters to convince them? Because some of them are in this.
I'm here just driving and no stoplights yet. Okay, be sure not to kill anybody with watching video and listening and all that.
True.
Sure, and I thank you all for taking the time to be here. And you could be doing a number of other things with your time. So this really is proof that we love our country. People are engaged, Anderson,
America.
and really want to talk about the issues. And so the issue that you raise, yes, I do believe that Donald Trump is unstable, increasingly unstable, and unfit to serve.
She's going back to that rhetoric where he's unstable, he's dementia Don, which is weird because they were trying to spin the angle that they didn't want violence, and that she's also saying that he is the bully and just demeaning people, all this nonsense. But yet here she is, she's going to bash him and be the bully.
And I don't necessarily think that everyone has heard what you and I have heard repeatedly, which is the people who know Donald Trump best, the people who worked with him in the White House, in the Situation Room, in the Oval Office, all Republicans, by the way, who served in his administration, his former chief of staff, his national security advisor, former secretaries of defense, and his vice president have all called him unfit and dangerous. They have said explicitly he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. They have said he should never again serve as president of the United States. We know that is why Mike Pence is not running with him again, why the job was empty. And then today we learned that John Kelly, a 4-star Marine general, who is his longest serving chief of staff, gave an interview recently in the last 2 weeks of this election, talking about how dangerous Donald Trump is. And I think one has to think about, why would someone who served with him, who is not political, a 4-star Marine general, why is he telling the American people now? And frankly, I think of it as he's just putting out a 911 call to the American people. Understand what could happen if Donald Trump were back in the White House.
Or he's worried about being fired.
And this time, we must take very seriously those folks who knew him best and who were career people are not going to be there to hold him back. At least before, there were folks who we know what he would say, but they would restrain him. Imagine now Donald Trump in the Oval Office, in the Situation Room. He who has openly admired dictators, said he would be a dictator on day one.
Which was a joke. And they keep taking all these things out of context. And it makes her look so bad. And you have to think this is probably why she would never go on a podcast like Joe Rogan, because she's not able to actually talk about the issues. That's the problem people are having with her, is she's going to say the same lies. If somebody were to actually ask her about it, don't you think that maybe he was joking in that statement? You know, he was clearly laughing and, all that BS. That's why she's never going to go on Joe Rogan. That's why. Somebody might call her out.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has said he is a fascist to the core. So I think that when the American people reflect, especially those who are undecided, on who you should listen to, don't take my word for it. In fact, go online and listen to John Kelly, his voice, talking about what he thinks of Donald Trump 2 weeks before the election. Because I think we all know, to your point, Anderson, it is close, but there are undecided voters who clearly, by being here, have an open mind, want to talk in a way that is grounded in issues and fact. And when they hear these facts, I think it compels a lot of people to be concerned about the future of our country with Donald Trump at the lead.
You've quoted General Milley calling Donald Trump a fascist. You yourself have not used that word to describe him. Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And
All right, there we go.
And I also believe that the people who know him best on this subject should be trusted. Again, look at their careers. These are not people, with the exception, I think, of only Mike Pence. These were not politicians. These are career people who have served in the highest roles in national security, who have served as generals in our military, who are highly respected. Talking about the person who would be commander in chief, not to mention what we know and what they've told us about how he talks about the military, servicemen and women, referring to them as suckers and losers.
Which is also another thing that was never proven.
How he demeans people who have taken an oath to sacrifice their life for our country. And I do believe, Anderson, that part of this is why, even just this week, I traveled this state and others with Liz Cheney, former Congress member who was a very high-ranking Republican. She has endorsed me. Her father, the former Vice President of the United States, Dick Cheney, is voting for me.
It's just so weird how Democrats are like, Dick Cheney's endorsing me. Like, these are the people that hated his guts for so long. Like, it's not even real. It's so weird. How many of those people coming out against Trump got donations for the DNC? Probably quite a few of them. I don't know, man. This whole thing is like these Democrats are painting this image of things that are not fact-checked, and they refuse to be in any kind of audience that would question them about it, so they can keep painting a narrative. It's like weaponizing the media, and they're just not, there's no way to really hold them accountable. That's where we're at. There's really nothing, people will believe it, because some people are suckers, and that's just how it's going to be, I guess. Some people are going to get their votes swayed because she's a coward to never go on any kind of interview that's actually going to push back on her. And that's just how it is.
Over 400 previous members of the administration, from Ronald Reagan to both Presidents Bush to Donald Trump even, have endorsed my candidacy. And the reason why, among them, is a legitimate fear based on Donald Trump's words and actions that he will not obey an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. He himself has said he would terminate the Constitution of the United States and wants to earn your vote.
No, he didn't. He never said that. Nobody running for president would ever say that. That's so stupid. This is just like, I can't believe they don't have reporters that will actually like ask questions about that, dig into it. They won't let her deviate from her campaign speech. That's really what this comes down to. She comes out, she says the same shit. Nobody's really having a conversation with her. It's just the same shit over and over. And that's just what this is with her.
To stand again behind the seal of the President of the United States? No one standing behind the seal of the President of the United States of America should be in that position saying they want to terminate the Constitution of the United States.
So now we're just making shit up. Yes, that's what they've been doing. They just make shit up. They have the media back them, and they publish articles that make shit up, and nobody's really around besides these third parties that will fact check her and actually call her out. And some people are brainwashed and believing the BS because they don't have time to actually dig into the issues. And that's just how it is.
Let's get to some of our voters. I want you to meet a registered Republican who's very concerned about Trump's views on democracy and January 6th. She told us she's looking for a reason to vote for you, but is yet to make her final decision. Her name is Natasha Kwiatkowski. She's a student at Bryn Mawr College. What's your question, Natasha?
Awesome. Thank you for being here, and thank you for taking my question.
Thank you, Natasha.
And as someone who hasn't fully committed to either party, how do you plan to address the concerns of independent voters and anti-Trump Republicans like myself who feel left out of the polarized political landscape? And what specific actions would you take to bridge the political divide and create more unity?
She's going to ramble on about Trump and about how Trump is so evil. Here it comes.
That's a wonderful question. I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans. And I think, to the point of, in the spirit of your question, that people are frankly exhausted with what has been happening over the last several years, which is this environment that is suggesting that Americans should be pointing fingers at one another.
That was you. The last several years, that was you. Several, like 2 to 3? That's your term. What are you talking about?
That we are divided as a nation instead of what I think you.
What Republican believes that Trump is out to destroy democracy? I mean, these questions are going to be set up, man. This is CNN. This is your propaganda machine right here. That's what we're looking at. So, everything here is not going to be true. It's mostly scripted. She's going to go straight into her campaign speeches.
You and I will speak for us, I think, who believe and know. The vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And I think that the American people deserve to have a president who is grounded in what is common sense, what is practical.
And here we go with our non-answers. I'm going to be a president of the people with common sense and grounded for the people. A bunch of shit that means nothing. Unless you're actually talking about issues and things that you're going to do, like they were talking about on the Joe Rogan Experience. None of this shit matters. None of this matters. This is the meme from Family Guy where Lois is running for governor or mayor or something, and she gets up there and she says 9/11, and they all cheer 9/11, and they all just lose their minds. That's exactly what she does here. So basically, another interview not policies or what she's going to do. How did it work for Hillary just attacking Trump? Yeah, I don't think this is gonna work for her. I got a feeling Trump is gonna win, unless they do some really shady shit. I really feel like Trump is moving ahead.
And what is in the best interest of
Let's check the polls, actually, and see. Not that the polls matter, but let's just see where they're at.
the people, not themselves. I started my career as a prosecutor. And I will tell you, I never in most of my career was outside of Washington, D.C., by the way. Only 4 years when I was in the Senate were in Washington, other than being vice president. I have never in my career as a prosecutor asked a victim or a witness of a crime, are you a Democrat or a Republican? The only thing I have ever asked is, are you okay? And I do believe that is what the American people deserve in their president, and not someone who makes decisions based on who voted for them or what is in their personal interest. And I reference that because, as we know, it has been revealed that Donald Trump, when he was president, during extreme disasters, when it came time to determine how those areas, those people who had been traumatized by extreme weather would get relief, he asked the question, did they vote for him? I believe the American people deserve better. And they deserve a president who is focused on solutions, not sitting in the Oval Office plotting their revenge and retribution.
I don't think that's what that was, but okay. I hate how.
Let me introduce you to Eric
divided
Swenson. He
this.
runs a service desk for an IT company in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania. He's registered as a libertarian, describes himself as an independent. He says he's undecided. Eric?
Thank you, Anderson. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Eric.
So my question is concerning groceries. Grocery
Yeah.
prices have gone up.
Are you some kind of white guy for Harris or whatever? No. No, I am not some kind of, what is it, white dudes for Harris? No, that is not me. I don't even get the white dudes for Harris thing. It really was like a last-ditch effort to try and get more white guys on board because she knows she's failing so bad with white men. White men are voting for Trump. The majority of them, let's be real. Let's just be real about it. They are. Do you think she would get mad and storm off the Joe Rogan Experience? I don't think she would get mad and storm off and do like a Karine at the White House press conference kind of thing. I think what she would do is she would blame it on her staff that they had to wrap it up. Something came up. We got to get out of here. But honestly, I don't think she would ever go and do it. There's so many questions that would need to be asked that she does not want to answer. So much mudslinging that she's done with things that are just not factual that she's never going to do it because the end result would be that her character looks bad. And her character does look bad because she's just kind of avoiding these things. And then she goes out and she gets Beyonce, like that's somehow going to convince people to like her. Dancing around with Beyonce. Does anyone really care about Beyonce? When we're thinking about voting for president, like, is Beyonce really going to like change our opinions? Beyonce is not over there asking her questions. I tell you that. Beyonce is just over there shaking her ass. That's pretty much it. White dudes for Harris may be voting for her, but their girlfriends' lovers are voting for Trump. Exactly. And I saw like a lot of the white dudes for Harris. I feel like it's kind of not real. It's like a Twitter thing that they kind of created. It's not real. They got Tim Walz out there and they had him throw on a shirt and whatever celebrity that they could throw money at, and people that were already going to endorse her anyway. The Hollywood scum. They brought these guys out like I'm supposed to be impressed by these pedo ring Hollywood actors. Like that's somehow going to change my vote. If anything, it just makes me want to not vote for her even more. Of course, it's not real. Nobody in real life cares about this junk. I mean, I care about it. I care about who the president is. I really care about the policies. It's just so apparent that it's not real, Especially the way that she won't do an interview with anybody legit, do any kind of actual conversation with people, like you know what I mean? Like with somebody that's at least gonna ask her questions. It's so fake. The whole thing's fake. It's never been more apparent that the whole system is just the media propping her up. With all the speculation on Jay-Z and Beyonce, a collab with her is a bold strategy content. I mean, exactly, right? With the whole Diddy party things. But I don't know, man. None of the people that she's bringing out that are supposed to be these massive celebrities do anything for me. I don't care about these people. Maybe I'm just dry and I'm a boring white guy, but I literally want them just to sit down and have a conversation like a long form podcast like Trump did with Joe Rogan, and ask them questions. See if they're real people. That's all I want. I don't need Beyonce. Beyonce doesn't sway my vote. I don't care about Beyonce. I don't care about Jay-Z or whatever actor they bring out. Half of those people are retarded anyway. I used to live in Hollywood. I've been around these people. They are the fakest, most bullshit people that will do anything to get ahead. They will endorse anybody depending on the money that you give them. They have no soul. So they bring out these people that have no soul, and I'm supposed to go, oh my God, guy with no soul or girl with no soul is voting for this person. I better get behind them and follow the trend. Like, no, fuck you. This doesn't do anything for me.
Quite a bit in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And some people blame former President Trump. Some people blame President Biden. Who would you say is correct? And what would you do to bring prices down for Americans?
Thank you, Eric. And you're absolutely right. You know it. I know it. I think most Americans know it. Price of groceries is still too high. And we need to address it in a number of ways. One of my aspects of doing what we need to do to bring down the cost of living for working people and the middle class in America is to address the issue of grocery prices. Part of my background and how I come to it is probably a new approach grounded in a lot of my experiences as a former attorney general, where I took on price gouging. And part of my plan is to create a new approach that is the first time that we will have a national ban on price gouging, which is companies taking advantage of the desperation and need of the American consumer and jacking up prices without any consequence or accountability. So that is one way. But to your point, Eric, there are a number of issues that we need to address in terms of bringing down the cost of
So she's going to destroy the free market. I agree with her. There's a problem there. There probably is a lot of corporations that are doing price gouging, but when she implements some kind of strict barrier on what these people can charge, that's just going to create all kinds of supply chain issues. It's going to fuck up our economy. Really, it is. I don't think that's the solution.
living. It includes what we need is a new approach that I bring to the issue of affordable housing, including, for example, rent And again, I bring to it my experience, knowing what has been happening in terms of how corporations have been buying up blocks of property to diminish competition, and then rents get jacked up, and addressing that, both in terms of making sure that there is a consequence and accountability for that, but also investing in people's dreams of home ownership, you know, knowing that for too long, frankly, both administrations in both parties, Democrats and Republicans, haven't done enough to deal with the issue of housing. And we need a new approach that includes working with the private sector. I say that as a devout public servant, working with the private sector to cut through the red tape, working with home builders, working with developers to create tax incentives so that we can create more housing supply and bring down the price.
Let me just ask you about price gouging. I looked at your plan. You talk about going after price gougers, and I'm quoting from the plan, on essential goods during emergencies or times of crisis. I get that. How does that help, though, someone like Eric with prices that for years the grocery prices just been high?
Well, first of all, Anderson, as you know, and obviously CNN has been covering extensively what has been happening in the state of Georgia, North Carolina, Florida. It's a real issue. I was Attorney General of California. I was the top law enforcement officer of the biggest state in the country. I took this issue on because it affects a lot of people. And I'm not going to apologize for the fact that we need to actually deal with accountability when these, not all, in fact, most don't, but when companies are taking advantage of the desperation and the need of the American people. We saw it actually during the pandemic as well, where because of supply chain issues, there was a reduction of supply, and then they would inflate the price of everyday necessities. Not to mention, by the way, again, Donald Trump should be here tonight to talk with you and answer your questions. He's not. He refused to come. But
Yeah, I wonder why. Yeah, let's think about that.
Understand that part of his plan is to put in place a national sales tax of at least 20% on everyday goods and necessities.
Yes, yeah, that's what he's running on. 20% sales tax. That's exactly his campaign. See, it's like this BS right here. Like, she just says bullshit.
And that, by economist estimates, independent economists, would cost you as the American consumer and taxpayer an additional $4,000 a year.
I want you to meet Carol Nakanoff, a political science professor at Swarthmore College. She's a registered Democrat who says she's leaning toward voting for you, has yet to make her final decision. Carol?
Hi, Carol. Thank
Good
you.
evening. Thank you for visiting us in Delaware County, Vice
Tell me that wasn't a Kamala voter. Look at her.
President Harris. My question is this. If you could accomplish only one major policy goal that required congressional action, what would it be and why?
Well, I come from a middle-class family.
Well, there's not just one. I have to be honest with you, Carol. There's a lot of work that needs to happen, but I think that maybe part of this point that how I think about it is we've got to get past this era of politics and partisan politics, slowing down what we need to do in terms of progress in our country. And that means working across the aisle. I've done that before. We did it around whether it be what we were able to accomplish with the bipartisan infrastructure deal or some of the work that we have done in terms of dealing with gun safety. But we've got to work across the aisle. And it is my commitment to work with Democrats, with Republicans, with independents, to deal with a number of issues, whether it be what we need to do in terms of housing and creating legislation that creates incentives for that, what we need to do to reinstate the freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do, whether it be what we need to do to actually invest in a substantial way in the industries of the future, in American-based manufacturing, in American-based industries where American workers and union workers have those jobs in a way that is good-paying jobs that gives people the dignity they deserve. All of those areas I plan on working across the aisle and with Congress, including the issue of immigration, which we've got to fix.
Let me ask you, you've talked about codifying Roe v. Wade. That would obviously require 60 votes in the Senate, a majority of the House. That's a big leap. We don't have that yet. If that's not possible to codify it in the House, what do you do?
I think we need to take a look at the filibuster, to be honest with you. But the reality of it is this. Let's talk about how we got here. When Donald Trump was president, he hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did as he intended. And now in 20 states, we have Trump abortion bans that include punishing healthcare providers, doctors and nurses. In Texas, do you know they provide for prison for life? For a healthcare provider for doing the job that they believe is in the best interest of their patient? Laws, Trump abortion bans, some that make no exception even for rape or incest. One of the areas I specialized in as a prosecutor was crimes against women and children. The idea you would tell a survivor of a violation to their body that they have no right to make a decision about what happens to their body next? This is what's happening in our country. You all may have heard the stories. Women have died. Women have died because of these laws. And the suffering, I have to say, Anderson, traveling, for example, I was with Liz Cheney this week. She is unapologetically pro-life and will also tell you that she doesn't agree with what's been happening. I find that many people I've met who are pro-life have said to me, you know, I didn't intend that this would happen. I didn't intend that women who are suffering a miscarriage would develop sepsis, as has happened many times. I didn't intend that women would die. I didn't intend that there would now be restrictions on access to in vitro fertilization. I didn't intend that there would be an effort to limit access to contraception. So, you know, this is probably one of the most fundamental freedoms.
They had the majority under Clinton. Why didn't they modify it then? They all agreed it was too big of a campaign getter. It will never be codified. But right now, yeah, she can kind of spin it as a... honestly, it's an issue she can win. That's the one issue she has over Trump. I think a lot of people believe that abortion should be legal unless you're like religious or something. Maybe there's some people out there that, you know, they're not with it. I think this is the one issue where she does win. This is the one issue. She kind of goes a little dramatic on it, in my opinion, but this is where she gets Trump. I was saying from her entire campaign, like, she should have been leading with this issue because this is the one issue that Trump couldn't really bring up a defense for.
That we as Americans could imagine, which is the freedom to literally make decisions about your own body. And on some issues, I think we've got to agree that partisanship should be put aside. And I'll close with this point. I know it is possible because when you look at the midterms, in so-called red states and so-called blue states, when this issue of freedom was on the ballot, the American people voted for freedom.
Man, you know what I hate about CNN is them making everything here a different tab. They're killing me, bro. They're really killing me.
Considering you have been in the position of vice president for the past 4 years under the Biden administration, how can we expect you to deviate from the direction of that administration compared to your own? How can we differentiate your policy and your beliefs from that of Biden's?
That's a great question, and thank you.
If she admits her deviation, she'll have to admit her failures, so she's not going to do it.
Well, first of all, my administration will not be a continuation of the Biden administration. I bring to this role my own ideas and my own experience. I represent a new generation of leadership on a number of issues and believe that we have to actually take new approaches. For example, what we talked about in terms of housing. My experience that leads to that priority includes what I did to take on the big banks around the foreclosure crisis when I brought billions of dollars to homeowners that were the subject of predatory lending. I know what homeownership means to the American people, not to mention what it meant to my mother, who worked very hard and saved up so that by the time I was a teenager, she was able to buy our first home. I bring to it my experience actually taking care of my mother when she was sick, and it was, as it turned out, dying from cancer. And so I know what it means and have the experience of taking care of an elderly relative, and I have raised children. And so I bring to my priorities and will, as president, a new approach and a new idea, frankly, about what we need to do to deal with the sandwich generation, which is what we call those folks who are literally in the middle, who are raising their young children and taking care of their parents, which is why my plan and approach says, hey, you shouldn't have to wipe out all your savings to qualify for Medicaid to be able to get support to hire somebody to help you cook for your parent or help them put on a sweater. I've done that. I know what that requires. You shouldn't have to quit your job in order to do the work that is necessary to take care of your children and your parent, because it's overwhelming to try to do it.
We represent a new generation, but all these aging presidents and past Congress people support me. We need to listen to them. Yeah, exactly. Everybody supports her.
All. And so my plan is to have and allow Medicare to cover the cost of home health care for our seniors. These are a couple of examples, including what we talked about in terms of price gouging and what we need to do in addition. And it's a new approach that I think it's well overdue. Let's invest in the small businesses of America. The woman who helped raise us was a small business owner. I know who small business owners are. I know what they do. They are the backbone of America's economy. And for too long, we've overlooked their value to the economy as a whole, much less to the economy of neighborhoods and communities. So that's why my plan, and it's a new approach, is about tax cuts for our small businesses so that they can invest in themselves and grow, and in the process, invest in communities, invest in neighborhoods, and strengthen.
Imagine owning a business and her administration comes in, the government, they tell you what percentage of profit you can make. Imagine that. They say, oh, really per year, you can really only have a 5% margin, and that's it for you. At what point do you just say, fuck it, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to start a business. Why would I start a business in America when they're putting a cap on the amount of money that you can make? It kind of defeats the American dream. I understand there's an issue with grocery stores charging crazy prices probably, but that just doesn't seem like the way to do it. Doesn't seem like a good plan.
Strengthen our economy overall. So those are some examples. It's about a new approach, a new generation of leadership based on new ideas and, frankly, different experiences. I bring a whole set of different experiences to this job and the way I think about it than Joe Biden.
Some voters, though, might ask, you've been in the White House for 4 years. You were vice president, not the president. But why wasn't any of that done the last 4 years?
Boom.
Well, there was a lot that was done, but there's more to do, Anderson. And I'm pointing out things that need to be done.
Was there a lot that was done in the past 4 years, really? Because all I see is people complaining. They can't afford shit. Gas is too high. Can't afford their rent. They don't make any money. All I see is complaints, really, from the past 4 years. I can't think of one good thing that someone's told me that, oh yeah, they really killed it on this issue. I can't think of one, really. Like right now, I'm trying to just think of something. There's literally nothing. But people will tell you, oh yeah, I was killing it under Trump. I was making all this money. My 401k was killing it. I had extra money. I could go to the movies. It wasn't going to bankrupt me.
That haven't been done, but need to be done. And I'm not going to shy away from saying, hey, these are still problems that we need to fix.
I want you to meet Jackson Weiss. He's a student at Drexel University from Flourtown, Pennsylvania, registered Republican, says he's leaning toward voting for you, but has yet to make up a final decision. Jackson.
Thank you, Anderson.
Hey, Jackson.
Thank you for taking the time to be here, too, Vice
You
President
too.
Harris.
Thank you.
Regarding the rapid increase in the migrant population, how will you ensure that every immigrant is integrated into American society safely? What benefits and subsidies will you provide them with? And how long will these benefits and subsidies last for an individual?
Okay.
Most importantly, will the American citizens' taxes pay for these benefits and subsidies? And if so, how much money will be allocated?
Well, of course they will. This money just doesn't come from thin air. And when it does, we print it and we devalue our money. So you're fucked either way.
Thank you, Jackson. Let's start with this. America's immigration system is broken and it needs to be fixed. And it's been broken for a long time. And Part of what we need to do is always prioritize what we need to do to strengthen our border. I will tell you, I'm the only person in this race among the two choices that voters have. I've personally prosecuted transnational criminal organizations in the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. I have spent a significant part of my career making sure that our border is secure and that we do not allow criminals in.
But you're failing. We are letting criminals in. Immigration is insanely out of control.
And we don't allow that kind of trafficking to happen and come into our country. And as my opponent has proven himself, he would prefer to run on the problem instead of fix the problem. You may know there were some of the most conservative members of the United States.
He's running on the problem because you created a problem. That's literally how campaigning is done. You failed on this issue, so now he's going to talk about it. Now, his solution is pretty much to deport all of these people. You could argue maybe that's racist. Maybe you don't like that. You think that's bad for people, but that's his solution. He does have a solution. He's going to get rid of them. There's too many people here, overburdened in the hospitals, overburdened by what has been. That's what she's going to say. But yeah, there's just too many people. That's what it comes down to. We can't afford all the people. So he's going to get rid of them. You can like that, you can not like it, but that's his solution.
Congress, working with others, they came up with a border security bill that would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border. Those border agents are overwhelmed. They need the support, they need the backup. It would have allowed us to have more resources to stem the flow of fentanyl. I don't need to tell this state and people around the country what is happening in terms of the scourge of fentanyl and how it is literally killing Americans.
Yeah.
It would have put resources into stemming the flow. It would have given more resources to prosecute, to investigate and prosecute transnational criminal organizations. It would have done a lot of good.
And how much to Ukraine?
Donald Trump got wind of the bill and told them, don't put it forward. He killed the bill because he'd prefer to run on a problem. And
he killed the bill because you called it a bipartisan border bill and included a bunch of other shit that had nothing to do with the border.
Instead of fixing a problem, we have to have a secure border and we have to have a comprehensive pathway for citizenship.
Which we have one. You're just bringing all these people in and waving your wand and making them somehow legal. So we have a pathway. You just don't want to use it because for whatever reason, you want to flood our country with immigrants.
And that includes requiring people, hardworking people, to earn citizenship and do it in a comprehensive, humane, and orderly manner.
Let me ask you about that. I mean, you talk about the bill that Donald Trump quashed. That was in 2024. You talk about the bill he tried to get passed in 2021. That wasn't able to get passed. 2022, 2023, there were record border crossings. Your administration took hundreds of executive actions. It didn't stem the flow. Numbers kept going up. Finally, in 2024, just in June, 3 weeks before the first presidential debate with Joe Biden, you institute executive actions that had a dramatic impact, really shut down people crossing over. Why didn't your administration do that in 2022, 2023?
First of all, you're exactly right, Anderson. And as of today, we have cut the flow of immigration by over half. In fact, the numbers I saw most recently, illegal immigration
But if
is
it was
low.
that
But
easy
hold on,
with
let me
that
finish.
executive action, why not do it in 2022,
The fact of the matter is that decisions weren't made for the people, but the select few. War is coming. I don't know, man. I don't want to go that extreme and say we're in some kind of crazy civil war or it's coming. I think they're just, we have a bullshit media propaganda machine. That's what I think.
2023.
Because we were working with Congress and hoping that actually we could have a long-term fix to the problem instead of a short-term fix.
You couldn't have done one and both at the same time?
Well, here's the thing. We have to understand that ultimately this problem is going to be fixed through congressional action. Congress has the authority and the purse. I hate to use DC terms, but literally they write the checks. Part of the issue is in order to really fix the problem at the border. I was just at the border recently talking with border agents. You know what they talk about? Yes, they are overwhelmed. They're working around the clock. And the other thing that they talk to me about, We need more judges down there to deal with asylum claims. We need more personnel down there to deal with processing. But Anderson, and that's where Congress kicks in terms of dedicating the resources to actually fixing the problem. We have dealt with it such that, to your point, we now, as of today, as of our visit, have lower undocumented immigrants and illegal immigration than Trump when he left office.
That's true.
But we need a permanent solution,
you
and that
wish you had
requires
done that?
bipartisan work.
Do you wish you'd done those executive orders in 2022, 2023?
I think we did the right thing, but the best thing that can happen for the American people is that we have bipartisan work happening, and I pledge to you that I will work across the aisle to fix this long-standing problem. I think the American people are demanding it on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
And it's time we actually put the partisan approach to this aside. We know what can work.
Well, let's talk about this compromise bill that you want to pass if you're elected. You said that's going to be a priority. It includes $650 million in funding for the border wall. That's something Republicans wanted. That was part of the compromise. Under Donald Trump, you criticized the wall more than 50 times. You called it stupid, useless, and a medieval vanity project.
Yep.
Is a border wall stupid?
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw was about 2%. And then when it came time for him to do a photo op, you know where he did it? In the part of the wall that President Obama built.
But you're agreeing to a
come
bill
on.
that would earmark $650 million to continue building that wall.
I pledge that I am going to bring forward that bipartisan bill to further strengthen and secure our border. Yes, I am. And I'm
So yes, the wall was a good idea, but you just don't want to admit it because it was Trump's idea.
going to work across the aisle to pass a comprehensive bill that deals with a broken immigration system. I think Jackson's question, part of it was to acknowledge that America has always had migration, but there needs to be a legal process for it. People have to earn it. And that's the point that I think is the most important point that can be made.
That is the point. That's where you're failing. That's what people are bringing the point up for, because you suck.
Which is we need a president who is grounded in common sense and practical outcomes. Like, let's just fix this thing. Let's just fix it. Why is there any ideological perspective on this?
Charlie Kirk gave a figure of 10 million illegal immigrants. To spell it for you, that's a homeland invasion. Then to make matters worse, they use our resources to comfort them. Yeah, exactly. And dude, she just it makes my head hurt because she's literally just running circles around this like she didn't play a role. She's acknowledging the issue without admitting her failures. Most of this is under her administration. That is a failure on her part. And then not even answering the kid's question about all the money that's being funded, our taxpayers going to pay for it. She completely just glossed over that shit when the guy asked it. Of course they're going to pay for it. Of course you're paying for all of this.
Let's just fix the problem.
To fix the problem, you're doing this compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build the wall.
I am not afraid of good ideas where they occur.
So you don't think it's stupid anymore?
I think what he did and how he did it did not make much sense because he actually didn't do much of anything. I just talked about that wall, right? We just talked about it.
Oh my God, this lady, she's killing me.
Elise Keene, she's from Philadelphia. She works as a fundraiser for Habitat for Humanity. She's registered with no party affiliation. She says she's a Democrat. She's leaning toward voting for you, but says she's yet to make her final decision in part because of the conflict in the Middle East. Annalise?
She's voting for her. I don't know what she's talking about.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Vice President.
Good evening.
My question is, as president, what would you do to ensure not another Palestinian dies due to bombs being funded by U.S. tax dollars?
So I will say, and I think this is to your point, far too many innocent Palestinian civilians have been killed. It's unconscionable. And we are now at a place where with Sinwar's death, I do believe we have an opportunity to end this war, bring the hostages home, bring relief to the Palestinian people, and work toward a two-state solution where Israel and the Palestinians in equal measure have security, where the Palestinian people have dignity, self-determination, and the safety that they so rightly deserve.
Israel doesn't want to talk and negotiate with Biden. Does anyone really believe they want to talk to Kamala if they don't want to talk to Biden? I mean, honestly. Trump didn't do much, blah, 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 blah. How many times did the Democrats stop him? Exactly. She's running on with her normal campaign stuff. But seriously, like, if Israel doesn't want to talk to Biden, does anyone really think that they want to talk to Kamala? Do they really think that Kamala's going to have the solution here? She's going to be the one in the room doing all the negotiations. Like, you have to look at that and be like, really? Really? The person that won't do an interview, can barely communicate, can't have a conversation, doesn't answer any questions, is going to go in there and negotiate these extreme issues. These people don't even want to talk to her. Let's be real. If they don't want to talk to Biden, they're really not going to want to talk to her.
What do you say to voters who are thinking about supporting a third-party candidate or staying on the couch, not voting at all because of this issue?
Listen, I am not going to deny the strong feelings that people have. I don't know that anyone who has seen the images who would not have strong feelings about what has happened, much less those who have relatives who have died and been killed. And I know people and have talked with people. So I appreciate that. But I also
play to emotions, don't come up with a solution, circle back, try to make them feel good, don't answer the question. That's what she's going to do.
know that for many people who care about this issue, they also care about bringing down the price of groceries. They also care about our democracy and not having a president of the United
What does that have to do with Palestine? Palestine don't care about our grocery prices.
States who admires dictators and is a fascist. They also care about the
So now she's doing it, Chad. She's circling back, blame Trump, don't answer the question. Here we go.
fact that we need practical, common sense solutions from a leader who is willing to work across the aisle on behalf of the American people and not themselves. They want a president who cares about a fundamental freedom to make decisions about your own body, understanding that we're not trying to change anyone's belief.
Her question was about Palestine. She said that is her deciding issue to get you to vote for her. That was the deciding issue. She's talking about Palestine. She's not talking about all this other bullshit. What she's trying to do is avoid the question because she even knows, she has to know that Netanyahu doesn't want to fuck with her, doesn't want to talk to her, doesn't want to have a meeting with her, doesn't want to negotiate with her at all. So we got to avoid the question.
But let's not have the government telling women what to do with their body.
I want you to meet Beth Sandberg. She's a realtor, a mom of 4 from Bella Cynwyd, Pennsylvania. She's a registered Democrat.
I'm more afraid of Biden Kamala with the nuke codes than Trump. To be honest, me too. Especially with Iran shit popping off. That's scary. That's some scary stuff.
Says she's undecided because of concerns about anti-Semitism. Beth?
Hi, thank you for being here.
Thank you,
Thank
Beth.
you for remembering we need to bring the hostages home.
Of course.
The rise of anti-Semitism and violence from anti-Semitism has risen greatly on college campuses and on our city streets in the last year. How would you combat this growing trend and protect our young adults?
Thank you, Beth.
Good question, actually. When they're blocking Jewish kids from going into a classroom, that's a fucking issue. What are you going to do, Kamala? Tell us.
You are right, and I will say that we have seen a rise in anti-Semitism. It is something that we have to be honest about and we have to deal with. As Attorney General, I actually published a hate crimes report.
All right, how many times are you going to go back to that shit? We know you were Attorney General. We get it. What are you going to do now? What is your plan? Not what you did. What is your resume? What are we doing now?
On a regular basis, and anti-Semitism was among the highest forms of hate in our country, and this was before October 7.
Got it. No one's arguing that. Anti-Semitism, bad. What are you going to do?
And we know what we've seen since. Part of what we've got to do is talk with people so that they understand
Talk with people.
what are the tropes, what are the roots of what we are seeing, so that we can actually have people be more understanding. We need to have laws in place that make those who would commit crimes on behalf of anti-Semitism and hate, that they pay a serious consequence. We need to have the deterrence so that doesn't happen.
Yeah, all right, here we go. They need a consequence. I'm with you. What is the consequence? Why don't any of these people asking questions step up and say you didn't answer my question? Because this is fake, man. This is scripted. They all knew the answers before they got there. They gave them cue cards to read their question. Let's be real. Come on. Nobody's pushing back. No, Anderson Cooper was trying to pretend like he was pushing back a little bit, but not really. And I can't think of one question that she's really answered. She goes on her campaign spiel that doesn't answer any of these questions. Comedic commentary, I'm glad you're enjoying it. The lady frustrates me. She really does. She gets under my skin. When people don't answer questions, the people supposedly are here at a town hall to ask questions that are going to lead to their deciding vote. They got a bunch of fence sitters in here, right? This is where she should really like shine through and like explain her policies, what she's going to do. But a lot of it's just appealing to emotion. That's it. She's basically treating them like children. Oh, pat, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. And then doesn't really give an answer. It's annoying.
We need to ensure that college students are safe in their school.
Right.
And feel safe to be able to go to class.
That's what she says. Everybody should be safe. Everybody should have food. Everybody should be able to afford groceries. Yeah, we all agree with that, but what are you going to do?
But I'm going to tell
Nobody should have cancer. That's it. Like, everybody should have a car. That's her campaign right there. And then they're like, hey, okay, I'm down. How are you going to do it? And that's where she just goes off the rails. Answers nothing.
tell you what doesn't help. Again, I invite you to listen and go online to listen to John Kelly, the former chief of staff of Donald Trump, who has told us, Donald Trump said, why aren't my generals like those of Hitler's?
He never said that. He literally, and that's the other thing that kills me. It's these things that were never said is what she falls back to. And I get it. She's trying to do character damage, but character damage only works if you're actually going to sit down and talk to a real person. If your idea of just mudslinging is just to have the media back you up and print these articles of things that never happened, and when people actually try to fact check you and bring conversation in and you just deflect and don't do anything, that's when people realize that your character is not that good, that you are actually the liar because you're not willing to actually discuss any of the issues.
Like Hitler, who has referred several times, we've heard the reports for years.
Do you believe Donald Trump is anti-Semitic?
I believe Donald Trump is a danger to the well-being and security of America.
He has said that he's casting himself as a protector of Israel. Do you believe you would be more pro-Israel than Donald Trump?
I believe that Donald Trump is dangerous. I believe that when you have a president of the United States who has said to his generals who work for him because he is commander-in-chief, these conversations, I assume many of them took place in the Oval Office. And if the president of the United States, the commander-in-chief, is saying to his generals, in essence, why can't you be more like Hitler's generals, Anderson? Come on. This is a serious, serious issue. And we know.
Just stop and think about that. Do you really think somebody running for president would say that? It just doesn't make any sense. She's going for damage points when Trump has plot armor. It just doesn't make sense. Let's just sit and think about it. Do you really think somebody running for president or being president, if she's saying that was at the time, would say, I want you guys to be like Hitler's generals? any halfway intelligent person, do you really believe that? Is that really something someone who, when you think of Trump, Trump's not in it for the money. He is in it for the legacy. That's what he wants. If we're being realistic about his character and probably his not so great points of his character, it's that he wants to leave behind a legacy that people point to and they go, oh yeah, Trump, he was that guy. He came in, he saved us. He was the great guy. That's where his ego comes in. And Kamala being the flip of that, her ego is more that she wants the power. She comes off to me like she wants the control. She wants to be the boss. It's different evils compared, like Trump just wanting his legacy. That can be a little weird too, but it's just going back to my point. Do you really think somebody that wants to leave a long-lasting legacy would sit there with generals and say, I want you guys to be like Hitler's generals? Does that make any sense? Come on. She's trying to get in as many keywords as she can now. Exactly. It's going to be fascist, Nazi, blah, 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 blah. Like, she's just going to throw them out there. White supremacist is next, all this stuff. And I just don't think people are wanting to hear that stuff anymore. People don't care about that stuff anymore.
Who he is. He admires dictators, sending love letters back and forth with Kim Jong-un.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Talks about the president of Russia, and then most recently, the reports are that in the height of COVID, when most Americans could not get their hands on a COVID test, Americans were dying by the hundreds a day. He secretly sent COVID tests to the president of Russia for his personal use. So again, this election in 13 days is presenting the American people with a very significant decision. And on the one side, on this issue of who is going to model what it means to use the bully pulpit of the President of the United States in a manner that in tone, word, and deed is about lifting up our discourse, fighting against hate, as opposed to fanning the flames of hate, which Donald Trump does consistently. I'm going to tell you, we are an incredible country, and we love our country.
Yeah, let's not communicate with the enemies. It's worked so far with Biden's plans. Exactly. And it's just nasty that anytime that he would try to negotiate with these people, which is something Trump would be good at. He is a good businessman. He's good at negotiations. He should be actually over there making deals and things like that. But anytime he communicates with them, suddenly he loves dictators. Oh, he's just, it's such BS, man.
Y'all wouldn't be here unless we love our country. And there are certain things where we've just got...
So is her plan not to communicate with these people at all and just hope they go away? And they're not developing weapons that can kill us? Is that her plan? That we just ignore them and they just disappear? Is that her leadership? Is that what she's going to bring to the table?
Got to come together and realize that we do believe in the importance of healthy debate on real issues, but there are certain standards we've got to have. And, another point that even John Kelly talked about, I believe, and many have, is January 6th, where you have the President of the United States defying the will of the people in a free and fair election and unleashing a violent mob who attacked the United States Capitol. 140 law enforcement officers were attacked. Some were killed. And so I say that to say the American people deserve to have a president who encourages healthy debate, works across the aisle, not afraid of good ideas wherever they come from.
You can't encourage healthy debate if you refuse to go on interviews. If you won't even debate on any platform that doesn't support you, how can you sit there and say that you're encouraging debate? If you won't even actually attend a debate that might oppose you in some slight way, how can you even say that?
but also maintain certain standards about how we think about the role and the responsibility, and certainly not comparing oneself in a clearly admiring way to Hitler.
We're going to take a quick break.
Oh man, she's back with the BS every time.
One of the first phone calls you made after President Biden announced that he was dropping out was to your pastor. And I'm wondering, if it wasn't a confessional, if you could say what that conversation was like.
Well, my pastor, Reverend
geez.
Dr. Amos C. Brown of Third
Nobody cares.
Baptist Church, it was an extraordinary day that Sunday when the president called me, and
I was cooking breakfast for my grandchildren, blah, 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 blah. I don't even believe her when she talks about this stuff.
I instinctively understood the gravity of the moment,
The smell of pancakes as the phone rang.
the seriousness of the moment. I didn't predict or know exactly how that day would play out, and obviously now it's been 3 months since I've been at the top of the ticket, actually 3 months as of yesterday. But I just called him. I needed that spiritual kind of connection. I needed that.
So she's trying to emphasize her religion there because she just told some Christians at her rally that they were at the wrong rally. She said something about Jesus. They said something like Jesus is Lord or some shit. I don't even remember what they said, but they said something that was a Christian phrase dealing with Trump, I think might have been on there. Well, we'll probably have to look up what they actually said, but it was some kind of Christian phrase. And she said they were at the wrong rally. And so now she has to bring back in her Christian supporters and talk about her religion. So that all of this is damage control. It's just, you're literally watching the media machine in real time here. You really can see it. You can see the people in the back room plotting and how they're trying to cover up minor mistakes that she made, controlling the narratives, making sure that the questions won't go out into fields that she can't handle. We're literally watching this in real time.
Advice. I needed a prayer, and there's a part of the scripture that talks about Esther and a time such as this, and that's what we talked about, and it was very comforting for me. And
it's really shocking how most people on the left who have become anti-religion praise her for stating she's a Christian. I haven't seen any of that. I don't see a lot of people on the left really praising any Christianity at all. If anything, they're almost insulting to Christians anymore. It's pretty bad. I see a lot of hate towards Christians, and that seems to be just okay. People can sling all the hate they want at Christians nowadays. Apparently, that's just okay. No one cares.
Do you pray every day?
I do pray every day. I do pray.
Is Kamala being religious the new brave and beautiful? No, man, they're just doing damage control. Who's to say she even goes to church, really? She's just trying to win back that audience that left her because of what she said.
Pray every day, sometimes twice a day. I grew up, so we grew up a little neighborhood church in Oakland, 23rd Avenue Church of God, and I was raised to believe in a loving God.
Man.
To believe that your faith is a verb, you
It's like she's making it up as she goes. She's like, oh, all right, I pissed the Christians off by telling them to go to the Trump rally and they don't belong here. So now I got to make up this scenario where as a kid, I went to church and we did communion and we'll just keep going. What else we got,
You live your faith. And
Jesus is Lord, right? That's what Christians say, right? Yeah, let's throw that in there.
And that the way that one should do that is that your work and your life's work should be to think about how you can serve in a way that is uplifting other people.
Did her edible just kick in? No, she's lying about being a Christian. What she's doing. She's trying to relate to Christians and doing a terrible job. She's covering her tracks.
That is about caring for other people. And that guides a lot of how I think about my work and what is important.
Let's go to the voters. I want you to...
That was a terrible answer. So yeah, we had some crosses when I grew up, and we baptized. That's a thing, right? You get baptized. Yeah, and that's about it. Yeah.
Meet Joe Donahue from Bucks County, Pennsylvania. He works in customer service for a local retailer. He serves as a local election official. He's a registered Republican who says he's undecided, doesn't agree with your stance on abortion, but he is concerned about what he calls Trump's demeanor and actions on January 6th. Joe?
Thank you, Madam Vice President, and thank you, Anderson. Madam Vice President, everybody as human beings, we're not perfect. We have our flaws. We make mistakes. We have our weaknesses. And the office of the presidency can sometimes bring those weaknesses out in ways that the incumbent may not expect. What weaknesses do you bring to the table, and how do you plan to overcome them while you're in office?
This is going to be a non-answer for sure. No way she's going to answer that.
That's a great question, Joe.
I care about the American people too much. She's going to say some bullshit like that.
Well, I am certainly not perfect. So let's start there. And I think that
Sometimes I work too late. This is like a job interview question that people just bullshit. This is what she's doing right now. Look at her. Look at her face. She's trying so hard to think of a good answer here. Let's see if she pulls it off.
Perhaps a weakness, some would say, but I actually think it's a strength, is I really do value having a team of very smart people around me who bring to my decision-making process different perspectives. My team will tell you, I am constantly saying, let's kick the tire on that. Let's kick the tires on it. Because, as I mentioned earlier, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a courtroom prosecutor.
How many times is she going to say that? We get it. For the millionth time, we've heard it.
I've tried everything from low-level offenses to homicides. And I learned at a
Hey, does anyone know what Kamala did in her career? I don't know. I could have fooled me.
very early stage of my career and adult life that my actions have a direct impact on real people in a very fundamental way. When I
Have any of these people asking questions not been a Kamala voter? They're supposed to be all fence sitters, and she's coming out here to try and sway them into voting for her. I think that's BS. I don't think they're fence sitters.
was Attorney General of California, I was Attorney General of what is the 5th largest economy in the world, and acutely aware that my words could move markets. So I take my role and responsibility as an elected leader very seriously, and I know the impact it has on so many people I may never meet. And that is why I engage and bring folks around. So I may not be quick to have the answer as soon as you ask it about a specific policy issue sometimes, because I'm going to want to research it.
So her weakness is she's dumb. That's pretty much what she just said. Her weakness is that she needs other people around her to make decisions for her. That's what I got out of that. They may only bring different perspectives, but will only vote for her party if they allow it. Okay. They're basically making decisions for her. That's kind of what you're getting at there.
I'm going to want to study it. I'm kind of a nerd sometimes, I confess. And some might call that a weakness, especially if you're, in an interview or just kind of, being asked a certain question and you're expected to have the right answer right away. But that's how I.
She's giving herself as Attorney General a lot more power than she had. I can move markets. Yeah, she's not the SEC, right? She's not Jerome Powell, at the Fed.
Work.
I don't think I've ever heard the former president admit a mistake. A lot of politicians don't. Is there something you can point to in your life, political life, or in your life in the last 4 years that you think is a mistake that you have learned from?
That time she said Donald Trump was Hitler.
I mean, I've made many mistakes, and they range from, if you've ever parented a child, you make lots of mistakes too. In my role as vice president, I've probably worked very hard at making sure that I am well versed on issues, and I think that is very important. It's a mistake not to be well versed on an issue and feel compelled to answer a question.
Again, not answering the question. She can't point to a specific mistake that she's made, which is what they were asking her.
You meet Pam Thistle. She's from Winmore, Pennsylvania. She's a realtor. She's a widow. Her husband, Mike, died just a year ago. She has two daughters in college. She registered with no party affiliation and says she's undecided. She has concerns about how you would handle the economy. Pam?
Thank you. And thank you, Anderson. And happy belated birthday, too.
Thank you very
I
much.
really,
I'm sorry for your loss.
Oh, thank you. Yes. And I'm really appreciative for you to be here and get to know you. When you talk about rich people paying their fair share, can you be more specific? Income taxes are already on a graduated scale, where the more you make, the higher percentage you pay in taxes. So the rich are paying a disproportionate amount in taxes as it is. Over 40% of Americans don't pay any income taxes. Also, the really high earners may move their money offshore if there are disincentives in the U.S.
Or if her policies actually come true, they're just going to leave. They're going to bail on America. Why would you stay here and pay more money? Didn't she hold prisoners longer to help with forestry downfalls? I don't know. I'd have to look at that.
Could impact the economy. I would like to hear more nuts and bolts about your economic plans.
Sure. Thank you, Pam. So first of all, it is the case in the United States of America that billionaires on average pay less taxes as a percentage.
That is completely false. I'm so sick of people saying that somehow billionaires pay less in taxes. That is the dumbest thing that has been circulating around. Billionaires pay the most in taxes. They always have, they always will. They pay more than your paycheck, you know, people listening to this, many times. They pay the most. That's how taxes works. I understand they get tax breaks, but they don't get that much of tax breaks.
Yeah.
Than teachers and firefighters and nurses.
Yeah. I'm talking
And
about
that-
hard workers like pound the street, have some success.
Yes, no, I
Yeah.
understand.
Right. The firemen, they pay the less, way less than billionaires. That's how it works.
But I want to just let's
Not
set
the
the
really high.
Let's set the scene, right?
Yeah.
So when I say that the richest among us need to pay their fair share,
Okay.
I am referencing that, and I need to reference that because sadly, Donald Trump, when he was president, gave tax cuts to the richest, to billionaires and big corporations, which added trillions of dollars to our deficit. So that sadly needs to be said in a way that should be obvious to your point, but is not given what he did. Now, in terms of what we need to do to bring down taxes, I have pledged and have a plan for a middle-class tax cut that would affect 100 million Americans, including, for example, what we will do around small businesses. In terms of tax deductions, in terms of what small businesses are now being mired in terms of a bureaucracy around they have to fill out and do their taxes in a way that actually holds them back. Part of my plan includes extending a middle-class tax cut that would include a $6,000 tax cut, essentially a child tax credit for parents and young parents in particular, knowing that the vast majority of our parents have a natural desire to parent their children well, but not always the resources. So this is going to include an extra amount of just money that people can use to pay for childcare, which is far too expensive for too many working families. And part of the issue here is this. We cannot, and I will not, raise taxes.
It's sad that we need the biggest corporation billionaires to help offset the deficit. And even if, okay, let's say even if they brought the, first of all, they're not going to bring the deficit down. They're going to take that money and they're going to spend it. They're going to spend it on some bullshit. That's what's going to happen. That's what always happens. So this fairy tale idea that she's somehow going to bring down the deficit with this, not going to happen. They're going to spend the money. That's what the government does. They take the money, they spend it. They put us in more debt. That's just how it works every time.
On anyone making less than $400,000 a year. But we do need to take seriously the system that benefits the richest and does not help out working middle-class Americans. I come from the middle class, and I believe that the middle class needs tax breaks to be able to actually not just get by, but get ahead.
So you're saying Well, what you're saying is anyone under 400,000 won't have taxes raised. Are you saying that anyone above 400,000 will have a tax raise?
I'm saying that there is going to be a parity around what the richest people pay in terms of their taxes. Right now, Anderson, you know, the document, it is well documented that some of the richest people in our country have gotten away with a zero tax rate.
But if you're earning $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 under your plan, there's a good chance your taxes go up.
We can't have this conversation without knowing it's a very complicated situation, right?
What? Let's be real. Come on. You're literally demonizing these people who make more than 400K. So just be real. Say you're going to raise taxes on them. You ran on the evil corporations, the evil people making over 400K. You're raising taxes on them. That was your plan. You're trying to cut taxes for the middle class. That's literally what you are trying to do here. Just say yes.
And if you're talking about a small business owner, I'm going to cut taxes for small.
No, we're talking about people making 400K. Are you raising taxes on them? That's what the question was.
Businesses, right? Because I know that they need the overhead, the money that they need for overhead to actually benefit the growth of their business, which benefits our economy as a whole.
Let's go to
Richest people equal Elon Musk only. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
You know, I want to reference something that about Pam. Pam, we mentioned her husband Steve died a year ago. You've talked about your mom, Shamala Harris, who died 15 years ago. What has grief been like for you? Do you still grieve?
Yeah, you don't stop grieving. You don't stop grieving. I mean, I think that there is, you know, there are like two sides to a coin when you have lost somebody you love. Or that two sides to a coin, that phrase becomes evident, which is if
they would never give Trump a question like this and allow him to be human on CNN, which is why he's not there right now. That's literally these kind of questions. We can sum up why he's not there because we knew they weren't going to be fair.
If you have had the blessing of a close and important relationship with someone, then when you have that, the other side of the coin is that when you lose them, the grief becomes even deeper. But I also believe that, for example, anyone who has lost a family member through cancer or an illness, my mother died from cancer, it is important to try and remember them as they lived and not as they died, because the grief can really weigh you down. I think the brain has a way of, when you're grieving, really spiraling down, and it's important, I think, to try and remember those you have lost in a way they'd want to be remembered.
Oh my God. Jesus, that was terrible. Cancer's bad. We all know cancer's bad, but I'm going to explain to you that cancer's bad.
Fearson, he's the chief marketing officer for a local organization. He's registered Republican from Media, Pennsylvania, who told us he's leaning towards voting for you, but has concerns about what he calls shifts in your policy positions. Rob?
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Vice President Harris. So welcome to Delco.
Thank you.
Here in Delco, we pride ourselves on being authentic.
Yeah.
And much of what we have seen, much of what you've been saying with regard to issues like law and order and fracking reflect a more centrist view than what people are used to hearing from Kamala Harris, leaving some voters to wonder about the authenticity of your current, more moderate positions. Can you talk a little bit about how your positions have shifted and why?
Sure, and thank you. So first of all, on fracking, I've been very clear. We kind of dispensed with this in 2020. I am not going to ban fracking. I did not as vice president. In fact, as vice president, I cast the tie-breaking vote that now has opened up more fracking leases. My value on...
But you ran on banning fracking, which is heavily documented.
The issue of what we need to do to invest in a clean energy economy and a clean energy future has not changed. But frankly, I now have the experience and perspective of having been vice president for almost 4 years. I've traveled the country. I know that we can invest in a clean energy economy and still not ban fracking and still work toward what we need to do to create more jobs and create U.S.-based jobs in a way that will be globally competitive. On the issue of law
Cancer is bad, so I'll personally give Israel $600 million in cash and $300 million in weapons to combat cancer. Exactly. And we're going to call it the Cancer is Bad bill. Because cancer is bad. And you better vote for it. Because if you don't vote for it, you think cancer is good. That's literally how politics are working nowadays. It's that sad. It really is. It's pathetic. Bipartisan border bill, my ass. Get out of here.
On order, as you mentioned, I think there's just a whole lot of misinformation, to be honest with you. I have personally prosecuted very serious crime. It's how I started.
We should have kept a tally on how many times she said she was a prosecutor, because I think we're up to at least 20 by now.
Started my career. I spent most of my career as a prosecutor, not in Washington, D.C. And as my first priority had and remains as a first priority to me, the safety of the American people. So that has not changed. And sadly, I think that there's a bit of misinformation, if not more than a bit. But I'm glad that you raised the subject so that I can address it. But just if you don't mind, just let me just finish. Because I think the
He wanted to push back so bad, but just couldn't do it.
The spirit of your question is really important, and I'm glad you raised it. Our country deserves to have a president of the United States who is not afraid of good ideas.
Was that really worth cutting Anderson Cooper off, asking you a question, to say some dumb shit like that? The American people deserve to have a good president. No shit. We get it. Cancer's bad. People need food. Everybody should be able to afford groceries. Really, like, this is her. That's her. That's it. She's not answering shit. That's it. This is her. People are voting for this.
And does not stand on pride. If a perspective needs to be informed by different points of view to build consensus and to have a common sense approach, I'm never going to shy away from good ideas. And I'm not going to feel the need to have...
I believe in good ideas. And cancer is bad. And we should have a medical care system that people should be able to go to. And what else? Coffee's good. I like coffee. People should have coffee. Jesus.
Pride associate with a position that I've taken when the important thing is to build consensus to fix problems. I believe in fixing problems. I love fixing problems. And so I pledge to you to be a president who not only works for all Americans, but works on getting stuff done. And that means compromise. And it doesn't mean compromising your values or your principles, but it does mean working to get stuff done. And I pledge to you I will do that.
Just to be clear, though, what he's referring to, and you point out to when you're running for vice president in 2020, you were not talking about banning fracking, but...
No, Anderson, I pledged that I would not ban fracking.
Right, I know. You said you would not ban fracking.
Correct.
You know, you had said in the 2019 town hall, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
Boom, mic drop.
In 2017, you talked about Medicare for all. You talked about 2019, you raised a hand in debate about if border crossings should be decriminalized. Are all of those issues, which those are not your positions now, are all those issues that you're saying through consensus and getting stuff done you have evolved on?
Well, no, let's take, for example, the issue of Medicare. My point has always been that access to health care should not just be a privilege of those who can afford it. It should be a right for all people. So that is why I have worked on doing what we have.
But you know who supports cancer? Former President Trump writes love letters to cancer. Exactly. I mean, we're really dumbing this down, but that's what it feels like when I watch her. It really is like puppies are soft. Everybody should get a puppy. Everybody should have a meal. Like it's just stupid. This is just the dumbest shit ever. I can't believe like this is a candidate. I really can't believe it. She very well could be president. We could be looking at 4 years of this word salad and not answering questions, nothing, just cancer's bad.
Have done to, one, allow Medicare to negotiate against the big pharmaceutical companies to bring down the cost of prescription medication. We've
And 4 years into her presidency, she's still gonna be blaming Trump, even though she was the VP.
achieved that in terms of capping the cost of insulin for seniors at $35 a month, capping the cost of annual prescriptions at $2,000 a year for seniors. But my plan moving forward, based on that very principle that I've always had, is as president to have that cap be for everyone and not just for our seniors. The work that I have done that has been about recognizing the importance of dealing with border security, that has never changed. As I said, I have
That has nothing to do with you flip-flopping. The question was, why are you flip-flopping? Now you're talking about how you've never changed on border security, when clearly, if you haven't changed, we need a change because you suck at immigration.
prosecuted transnational criminal organizations. That I did for years before I ever ran in 2019.
I mean, you did raise your hand saying in a debate when asked if border crossing should be decriminalized, but obviously that is not your position.
I never intended, nor do.
One of my bosses once told me presidential candidates speak to the lowest common denominator. Unfortunately, that denominator keeps lowering every year. Yeah, it's getting sad. It really is. Like, the American people allowing her to talk like this is sad, and not demanding something better. It's really just, I can't believe it. Like, if I went to my job and I acted and answered questions like this, they would fire me immediately. If I gave non-answers like this, didn't answer a single question, I would be gone. But we have this system here that just lets these people ride. They just keep going. They're part of the big machine, and it doesn't matter. It's crazy. It really is crazy to think about and to watch it in real time.
Will I ever allow America to have a border that is not secure? I believe we need to deal with illegal immigration. There needs to be consequences, which is why part of my plan that I have outlined, and again, please go to KamalaHarris.com. Sorry to throw a website on you, but
It is here now. You're right.
why not? And you will see that part of my plan includes what we need to do to actually do more as it relates to putting resources in, including increasing penalties for illegal crossing.
And just finally on fracking, you said you're clear you would not ban it as president.
No, I would not ban it as president.
Right, I know you're clear on that.
But
Do you
you
think it is
did.
bad for the environment, though?
Say that.
I think that we have proven that we can invest in a clean energy economy. We can mitigate greenhouse gas emissions. We can work on and sustaining what we need to do to protect this beautiful earth of ours and not ban fracking.
That's so, God, she's killing me. She's really killing me.
Tanisha Spall
All right.
from Lansdowne, Pennsylvania. She
This
works
is the last one, so let's see if she comes up with anything intelligent to say here.
as an education administration manager for the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections. Registered Democrat who says she's leaning towards supporting you, has yet to make her final decision. Tanisha, welcome.
Thank you, Anderson. Thank you, Madam Vice President, for joining us this evening.
Of course.
I appreciate that you did acknowledge that we are a country that is faced with problems and issues. With the Supreme Court being plagued with issues, would you be in favor of expanding the court to, say, 12, so each justice has only one circuit court other than Chief Justice to assist in making judgments more balanced?
Well, to your point, there is no question that the American people increasingly are losing confidence in the Supreme Court. And in large part because of the behavior of certain members of that court and because of certain rulings, including the Dobbs decision and taking away a precedent that had been in place for 50 years, protecting a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. So I do believe that there should be some kind of reform of the court, and we can study what that actually looks like. But I do believe. But again, let's just, while you raise the point of the court, understand that, again, in 13 days, the American people will decide who is the next president of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
In 13 days, you will decide who is sitting in the Oval Office on January 20th. And on one hand,
I think next week I'm going to vote. I'm going to see if I can go in on Friday and get her done, you know?
you have in Donald Trump someone who has increasingly proved himself to be unstable, and who, as we have established and the people close to him have established, he is unfit to serve.
Thanks for the follow.
Somebody who, on January 20th, you can be sure, will spend full time, like we know, and we've seen the image mentally of him sitting in the dining room off of the Oval Office, watching for hours as people violently attack the Capitol. You can be sure, because he has said he would weaponize the Department of Justice to go after his political enemies, that you can look at a Donald Trump in the White House after January 20th, sitting in that Oval Office, plotting his revenge. He has talked about the enemies within. We haven't even raised that subject, Anderson. The enemies within. He's talking about the American people.
No, he's talking about your party. He's talking about you weaponizing the court system to go after him. He's talking about the people in your party who want to ban free speech, which is just weird as an American. Like, people that actually want to censor free speech. That's who he's talking about. He's talking about you. He's not talking about the people.
He's talking about journalists, judges, nonpartisan election officials. He has talked about, as John Kelly has talked about, can he send the military after peaceful protesters? And he's going to sit there unstable, unhinged, plotting his revenge, plotting his retribution, creating an enemies list. I'm going to tell you, my list will be a list of how I address and continue to address the issues that you all are raising this afternoon and evening. It will be a to-do list about how we can impact the American people and lift up the American people and address some of the challenges that we continue to face.
I want to get one last questioner in. This is Elkin Pleat. He's a student at Temple University, registered Democrat, leaning towards voting for you, has yet to make up his final decision. Elkin.
All right, last question. Here we go.
Hi. First of all, go Birds, and hi from
No one cares about your birds.
from Danville, California.
Oh, hi, Elkin.
But my question is, what is the proudest moment of your political career thus far, including when you were the AG?
Okay, no, that was really last question. That's what you ask? Really? Come on, dude. Of all the things you could have asked her, come on, bro.
Oh, that's a great one. I've actually had a few. One of them is I, as Attorney General of California, created what I named the Bureau of Children's Justice. And you may be familiar with that as a Californian. And it was because I believe that, frankly, we still have a lot to do in terms of policy that impacts children. And an investment in the children of our country is an investment in all of us and our future. And that work has actually produced significant results. That has been a proud moment for me. It was a proud moment for me to do the work that we've been doing that has addressed issues like maternal mortality. I mean, it's in response to an incredible tragedy, but lifting up that issue in a way that we agree that America should not have one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the world. So I have had the good fortune of, in my life as a public servant, knowing the impact that we can have. And I guess that is probably what motivates me most, because I know we can make a difference. I really do. And I do believe that the American people deserve a president who's going to be hardworking and, you know, will make mistakes from time to time, but is focused on you. And I think
We just won't admit what those mistakes are when we're asked what mistakes we made. But we'll make them, for sure.
that is so fundamental in this election. So fundamental. You deserve a president. I believe the American people deserve a president who's saying, look, let's just be practical. Let's get things done. And let's not be afraid of having a little joy to the point of, you know, what makes you feel good about your work. Let's do it in a way that is grounded in optimism. You know, the thing that I think we all know about who we are as the American people, we are people who are ambitious. We have aspirations. We have dreams. We are inherently optimistic. Inherently optimistic. And I think people are exhausted with the idea that we're just going to be divided and angry instead of working on the problems and working together. And that's what motivates me, and that's what makes me proud when we're able to do that. So,
Vice President Kamala Harris, thank you very much.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Anderson.
All right, there she is in all of her glory. Kamala Harris. Jesus. That was a good one to watch, though. I'll give her that. All right, so I'm going to do a restroom break and come back and see what else I can find. All right, all right. That was fun to watch. You know, even if I think she's half retarded, it was still fun to watch. This one.
You know, I watched.
That one. All right, so speaking of celebrities who are endorsing Kamala, Beyonce did come out. I think this was yesterday in Houston, Texas, at a Kamala Harris rally where she was going to show her support. Like anybody was going to be surprised that these people were going to support Kamala. I don't get it, man. I don't see why this would shift anybody's vote. I don't understand why anybody cares what Beyonce thinks about politics, but let's go ahead and just hear what she has to say. Let's hear her out, you know? Why not?
Town. We are so happy to be standing here on this stage as proud country Texas women supporting and celebrating the one.
Your stream is my only political thing I watch anymore. I'm done with it all. It was the continuous text and phone call this time around. I appreciate it, man. The goal here is to make this funny and fun. Sometimes it's frustrating when you see these people, but you know, I try to have a good time with it. I try not to let it raise my blood pressure, but it does sometimes, you know. I haven't got the spam text yet, though. People telling me to vote or the phone calls or anything yet. I haven't got any of that yet. Hopefully, I don't get that.
One and only Vice President Kamala Harris. A woman who's been pushing for what this country really needs right now: unity. It's impossible not to feel the energy in this room, the positivity, the community, the humanity. We are at the precipice of an incredible shift, the brink of history.
The brink of history.
I'm not here as a celebrity.
Bullshit. The only reason you're here is because you're a celebrity.
I'm not here as a politician.
Obviously, you're not a politician.
I'm here as a mother.
You're on that podium because you're famous. Don't lie to people. It's horrible here in Utah. Man, that just sucks. It's due to something called social contagion.
A mother who cares deeply about the world my children and all of our children live in. A world where we have the freedom to control our bodies. A world where we're not divided. Our past, our present, our future merge to meet us here.
Yeah, Kamala's gonna bring us all together. Wasn't Biden pushing for unity, but instead made the divide greater? Yeah, absolutely.
Imagine our daughters growing up seeing what's possible with no ceilings, no limitations.
I'm here for the paycheck. That's exactly what I was thinking when she was smiling like that. Like, I'm getting paid. And hopefully the system doesn't expose me to all of these crazy Diddy parties that I attended.
Imagine our grandmothers. Imagine what they feel right now. Those who have lived to see this historic day.
Imagine the people destroying the Diddy tapes that I'm on and my husband.
Even those who are no longer physically with us. Imagine all of their sacrifice. The sacrifices made so we can witness the strength of a woman standing in her power, reimagining what leadership is. For all the men and women in this room and watching around the country, we need you. Your voice has power and magnitude. Your vote is one of the most valuable tools, and we need you.
So if Trump wins, can I blame women? Yes. Yes, that's exactly what she's saying. If Trump wins, it's all women's fault. No, you know they're going to blame white dudes for that. The first thing they're going to do, because of Trump's massive white dude majority, of course they're going to blame white men. They're going to say, if Trump wins, they're going to say, because of white supremacy, this country hasn't moved past all of this, blah, 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 blah. That's going to be the narrative. And then maybe there's going to be some riots and some shit going down too. So I'm 47. I grew up in a generation when women had no ceilings. When did the ceilings get installed? Yeah. What ceilings are they talking about? Was she kind of bringing back the wage gap thing? Is that her plan? It's a good way to manipulate people, though. I get it. I see what she's doing. It makes sense. The thing that she can run with, though, is that we don't have a woman president. That would have been a smart move to say that, and moving into having a woman president, that is breaking ceilings. But the way she kind of said it was iffy.
Your freedom is your God-given right, your human right. Everybody say Texas.
Your freedom is your God-given right, just not your freedom of speech. That's misinformation. What this speech needs, a male to female trans person explaining to women and men are taking all the good positions and rights from women. Yeah.
Texas plays a pivotal role to change the course of our future. Texans and Houstonians from 3rd Ward, River Oaks, Sugarland, 5th Ward, A-Leaf, Memorial, Southwest Side, North Side, all the way down to...
I don't know. Maybe I'm just old school, but the last person I want to hear give me a political speech is Beyonce. Maybe I'm dry, boring white guy again, but I want to actually hear a conversation with the candidate, a sit down, questions being answered, that kind of thing. I don't need to see Beyonce. That does nothing for me. Maybe it does something for some people, maybe, but I don't know. Like, is anyone surprised that Beyonce is siding with Harris? I think we all knew that was coming. I don't think, the whole left side of the spectrum, I get it, but I don't relate to those people. Like Oprah coming out, of course she's going to endorse Harris. All of these actors and, pedophiles in Hollywood, of course they're all going to be on that team because that's that side of the machine. It's not surprising. It definitely doesn't sway my vote any. If they want to sway votes, they should actually be sitting down and having conversations, not throwing Beyonce in my face, because I don't care what Beyonce thinks. Wait, wasn't she mad at Texas because they said she wasn't country and that's why she didn't win a CMA award? Yes, I remember that. Yeah, they were mad at Beyonce for switching and doing a country album, but yet they were also mad at Post Malone doing a country album saying he was a culture vulture. Makes total sense to me, right? Makes total sense.
Most City. We all have a role to play to make this a reality. We're all part of something much bigger. We must vote. And we need you. It's time to sing a new song.
Oof.
A song that began 248 years ago. The old notes of downfall, discord, despair
Is she gonna stand for it though?
no longer resonate. Our generations of loved ones before us are whispering a prophecy, a quest,
That's the kind of stuff that gets you kicked off YouTube.
a calling, an anthem. Our moment right now. It's time for America to sing a new song. Our voices sing a chorus of unity. They sing a song of dignity and opportunity. Are y'all ready to add your voice to the new American song? Because I am. So let's do this, ladies and gentlemen. Please give a big, loud Texas welcome to the next President of the United States, Vice President Kamala Harris.
All right, that was about what I thought it was going to be. Pretty much what I expected. Somebody explain to me what's been going on with Mark Cuban. He's been simping for Kamala really hard lately. And people have been saying on Twitter that the Democrats must have something on him because of how hard he's been going for her. And it is. It's not natural. It's at a weird level that he's like defending her all of a sudden out of nowhere. But here he is. He's got a new video with Kamala. So let's see what he's kind of saying here.
At Shark Tank all the time.
See, I knew I liked you.
And then I often, depending on, because, there are a lot of reruns, I'll look it up to see how the company's doing.
Well, hopefully mine are doing well. Hey.
How are you, Mark?
Good. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So excited to talk to you.
I am
Kamala.
excited to talk with you.
And Mark.
So I know it's a grind with an NBA season going city to city. So what does it feel like? I mean, just physically.
Long days. I start every day. I work out every morning.
And what's your workout?
Elliptical.
Uh-huh.
And then I go. And I go
Okay.
all day long.
And are you just exhausted at the end of the day?
Your body doesn't lie to you when you first wake up in the morning.
Yep.
And then your brain kicks in and says, oh, everything will be fine, right?
That workout just gets you going.
And it gets me going every morning.
So here's the other question I've been wanting to ask. We've talked about tech
Yeah,
and
yeah.
innovation, how important it is to the economy and just dominating globally,
Yeah.
right? Do you ever geek out at all?
All the time.
So tell me about that.
So my mother was a scientist,
Yes.
right? So I grew up as a kid going to the lab. I grew up seeing her have a passion about, she wanted to end breast cancer. She wanted to find a cure. And she did make breakthroughs in breast cancer research.
That's amazing.
And that's where the source of my geeking
It all
out,
comes from, right? But so now I got to ask,
P. Diddy party busted, all new celebrities simping for Kamala connected. You think Mark was at a P. Diddy party though? I don't know, maybe. Possibly. Who knows?
I was at your speech in Pittsburgh,
Uh-huh,
and you talked
yes.
about it took only a year to build the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
And that you said that you were going to cut permitting, you were going to cut the time for licenses,
red
for
tape.
all the red
It slows
tape.
things
So how do
down.
we take that and use it to cut the deficit?
So part of it is we cannot be rote in terms of how we think about deficits to say government spends too much. Because I think that is overly simplistic.
I agree.
We have to ask, are we spending it in a smart way such that we are yielding a return on that investment?
Just
that
like a
is-
regular business.
But this is exactly right.
I get all that right. So here's
Yeah.
kind of the angle I was looking at tariffs on.
Yeah.
I've known Donald Trump 25 years. He used to be okay on trade policy,
Yeah.
but over the last 25 years, he's just lost it.
I don't think he pays attention to the details, and you can't be president of the United States.
Unless you pay attention to the details.
Yeah, that's fine if he wants to, just give speeches in random places for random.
There's so many cuts in this interview that you can tell that it was just very awkward, the way that they're like slicing things in. He did own the Mavericks and was in New York City all the time. Opportunity. Yeah, the opportunity, I guess, was there. There's the connection, straight to the P. Diddy party.
Reasons, but to talk about such significant policy like tariffs, much less foreign policy, he is applying a machete when a scalpel is what's necessary.
It makes no sense to me whatsoever. To me, I think Donald Trump is the Grinch that stole Christmas. This time next year, we're going to be thinking about Christmas presents for all of our kids. And if he puts a 60% tariff on everything from China, those prices are going up. And now all of a sudden, your vision of everything you wanted to have for your kids at Christmas is gone. Donald Trump just crushed it. And it's not
He's taking Christmas. Oh no.
just crushing people's Christmases. Those small companies that support communities, now all of a sudden, not only did their costs go up 60%, but their businesses were just shot.
Right.
He is going to put who knows how many small businesses out of business.
Goldman Sachs, Moody's, Wall Street Journal most recently, 16 Nobel laureates have all examined our policies. Mine, as has been reviewed, will strengthen the economy. His will weaken it. It will incite inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year, Mark.
I don't think he's ever run a company where you have to go deal with the fundamental basis of your business. He has no clue. And the worst part is, he doesn't care.
Let's not forget he was handed so much of what he's had and has lost it. And he doesn't understand how people like you and so many others, and this is what I love about the American people, who are hardworking, who have grit, who are innovative, and who start with nothing. And make something. And
makes
that's
all the
something
difference.
he doesn't get.
No, obviously, I've been investing in startups forever. When I work with these companies,
Wasn't buying American always the plan for Biden? Now we can't buy Christmas because tariffs against China. Make that make sense. There's no making this make sense, man. It makes zero sense. It really doesn't make any sense. But if we can demonize him somehow by coming up with elementary school kind of things like, oh, he's going to take away Christmas, he's the Grinch, then people won't vote for him because people are stupid.
it's their whole life.
Yeah.
They've given up something, and he doesn't realize that this person has worked 5 years, 10 years to save up enough money to start this business, or they just went for it. And he doesn't get that. And that's where the tax credit, and that's the other reason why talking about childcare and daycare, being able to have $6,000. So if you have a child and a newborn, you can keep on
buy
working.
a crib and a car seat. How are they going to actually afford, especially during that first year of the child's life? Right now, for so many of Gen Z, Gen X, the idea of the American dream is really elusive. It was an older concept.
It's tough. Yeah.
And a big part of it being housing supply. We don't have enough. And so the prices go up.
Yep.
That's why I want to build more housing supply, but also work with developers and home builders to cut the red tape and
Who
to
are
get them
hardcore
tax
entrepreneurs, hardcore entrepreneurs. Yeah, I think that is so important because, One of the questions I get all the time is about work-life balance.
Yeah.
Because it's a challenge. You know, you've got to pay the mortgage, you've got to pay the rent, whatever, you got to pay the car payment and insurance. It's a tough decision to go start a business. Having a $6,000 tax credit gives you the comfort that you can get somebody to help your child. You can have some work-life balance.
Right.
And I don't think he's never been in that situation. Not all those people started like Donald Trump with a silver spoon, right? These are people putting their life on the line.
It's that energy and that grit, to your point, that is going to spur us into the future, right? Because here's the
Look at him, dude. They have something on this guy. I don't know what it is. Something's not right. I'm not trying to go full-blown conspiracy theory on y'all, but just look at it. Look at something's wrong. For sure.
The other thing about entrepreneurs, you can't be a successful entrepreneur without actually thinking about where are things going.
Look, we're here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we're going to be talking to a bunch of kids. And I guarantee you, one of them is going to start a business, and that business just might be the next Nike, might be it's those kids that are going to change the world, invent the next technology.
The idea of knowing that it is possible for us, if we work and study something, that we can create something that improves and uplifts the human condition.
Of course.
That excites me to no end. Like that's where I see where we could actually combine a lot of our areas of focus.
For sure. And I wanted to let you know that as an entrepreneur, as an investor, as a geek, the things that you're doing matter. I'm getting more and more people emailing me, calling me, saying, maybe she really understands what it takes to be an entrepreneur, what it takes to be successful. And I know
Nobody's calling you. Get out of here. What are you talking about? Whew, man. Are all Mark Cuban employees making $120K a year? His janitors at his business? Absolutely not. We cut costs where we can. And we call them a racist when we can. That's what they do. Oh, yeah. I got one more in me. Do this one. I'm gonna flip back because we spent so much time on the Democrats today. Flip back to some Republican stuff and see what they're up to with some Tulsi Gabbard. So this is Tulsi Gabbard in Congress, and she's talking about Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. Okay. And supposedly there's an eruption that goes on. So let's go ahead and see what they're actually up to in this one.
Without freedom of thought, there can be no such thing as wisdom and no such thing as public liberty without freedom of speech. I love our country and I cherish our God-given freedoms that are enshrined in the Constitution. Like every one of you, I took an oath, both as a soldier and as a member of Congress, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now, I've had the privilege of serving alongside many of you in Congress for 8 years, representing the people of Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District, serving on the Armed Services and Foreign Affairs Committees. I'm honored to be able to continue to serve as a Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Army Reserves now for almost 20 years, where during that time I deployed to 3 war zones and participated in multiple overseas training exercises.
You can have a still pic of Tulsi on your screen and I'd watch. Come on, man. Get your head out of the gutter.
Where I had the opportunity to see firsthand what life is like in countries where there is no First Amendment, where there is no free press, where government deems itself to be the moral arbiter to its people, dictating to them what is right and wrong.
She's the real life rogue with their hair doing that. She has the one like gray streak going down. She's like real life rogue.
What can and cannot be said, who can speak, who cannot, who is free to worship, and who is not. Now, our founders understood the importance of enshrining our God-given freedoms in the Constitution and Bill of Rights to ensure that no matter which party or person may be in power at any given time, our founding documents serve as a reminder of these freedoms that are guaranteed to every American. Thomas Paine said, "He that would make his own liberty secure must guard even his enemy from opposition. For if he violates this duty, he establishes a precedent that will reach to himself." We cannot be so short-sighted as to thinking silencing speech that we don't like today will not result in our own voices being silenced tomorrow. The work that you've all been charged with in this committee affects all Americans.
And she takes away the power of the more powerful. That's pretty much what she's trying to do here. I'm waiting for her to start talking about Hillary Clinton and all the things that went on with that shady business, but I think she's focusing more on her free speech at this point. I'm sure she'll get into her being put on a list and not being able to fly, which is just craziness that could even be a thing. But yeah, this is her fighting back.
And it is too important to allow it to fall victim to partisan politics. No matter how deep your differences, we must all agree to stand on the side of liberty. Unfortunately, right now we live in a country where many Americans are afraid to speak freely, afraid to express themselves, afraid to actually have real open dialogue and debate, afraid of losing their job, being canceled, or being accused of a crime, which could happen if recently introduced legislation criminalizing so-called hate speech is passed into law, speech that, no matter how abhorrent, is still protected under the First Amendment. Now, this fear and this culture of fear and self-censorship is not unfounded. We have individuals in our government often working through their arms in the mainstream media and big tech, doing exactly what our founders rejected, trying to control what we, the people, are allowed to see and say under the guise of protecting us from so-called misinformation or disinformation. Now, of course, they appoint themselves as the sole authority and voice of truth, of information, backed by the most lethal force on earth with the power to target anyone they deem a threat. They alone are the ones, self-designated, who get to decide what is true and what is false, what is information and what is misinformation or disinformation. They say they're doing this for us, that they're doing this for our own good, to protect the people. But in reality, the truth is they think that we're too stupid to think for ourselves, too stupid to discern for ourselves and to draw our own conclusions. Now, the idea that we must just blindly accept whatever the government or those in power tell us is true goes against the very essence of our Constitution and Bill of Rights, which were created as a resounding rejection of the reign of kings, churches, and authorities. They tell us we must blindly trust them or face the consequences, even though our government has a long history of lying to us, the American people. Just to cite a few examples, we were lied to about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, which spurred the war that I and so many others served in and so many others sacrificed their lives in. They lied for almost 2 decades, claiming success in Afghanistan, when in fact we saw failure after failure after failure, coming at a great cost to this country. We saw lies about Vietnam that were revealed in the release of the Pentagon Papers. We saw lies about our own government illegally surveilling Americans. These are just a few examples. There are many more. Ranking Member Plaskett talked in her opening comments about how individuals in the FBI also throughout our country's history have abused their power, weaponizing those agencies to advance their own political interests. This is not and cannot be reduced to a partisan fight. The stakes are too high. We all must recognize our own responsibility to stand against such abuses. But as we sit here today, the danger is that if we choose to reject or challenge whatever those in power declare is the so-called truth, we are accused of being anti-authority. We are accused of being a danger to society, accused of spreading misinformation, and are then targeted, smeared, and called things like Russian asset, white supremacist, bigot, racist, sexist, extremist, traitor.
Which is exactly what they called her, a Russian asset. Imagine fighting in the Iraq war and they call you a Russian asset. Man, that's rough.
And so on. More dangerous than any baseless smear our own government institutions, which exist to serve the people, they are being weaponized against us. The Department of Homeland Security declared a heightened domestic terrorism threat due to 3 factors, the first of which is, quote, the proliferation of false or misleading narratives which sow discord or undermine public trust in U.S. government institutions, end of quote. They are the ones who get to decide what those false or misleading narratives are. Former CIA Director John Brennan said in 2021 that, quote, members of the Biden team are now moving in laser-like fashion to try to uncover as much as they can about what looks very similar to insurgency movements that we've seen overseas. An unholy alliance frequently of religious extremists, authoritarians, fascists, bigots, racists, nativists, and even libertarians, end of quote. Attorney General Garland charged his newly created domestic terrorism unit with targeting those who hold, quote, anti-authority views. That included parents who dared to protest at Board of Education meetings, concerned and standing up for the right for themselves to have a say in their children's education. A draft copy of the Department of Homeland Security Quadrennial Homeland Security Review outlined their intent to target, quote unquote, inaccurate information on a whole host of topics, to include the origins of COVID, vaccines, the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, and U.S. support to Ukraine. Their misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation team exists to, quote, counter all types of disinformation. Once again, they get to determine what this disinformation is. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg revealed on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast recently that Facebook limited the exposure of the New York Post Hunter Biden laptop story just weeks ahead of the 2020 election, only after talking with the FBI. Twitter took similar action, but they recently apologized for doing so, recognizing that their decision was wrong. The cozy relationship between the White House officials, the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and big tech is now well documented and results in private companies not restricted by the First Amendment doing the dirty censorship work of those in government who are not legally allowed to do so themselves. The threat big tech monopolies pose to our democracy is real and serious. I've had personal experience with this. After the first Democratic primary presidential debate in 2019, I was the most searched candidate of the night. Unfortunately and suddenly, my Google Ads account was mysteriously suspended without any notice or explanation. There were no responses to our multiple attempts to resolve whatever problem could have caused this. But after some time passed, magically my account was reinstated, again with no explanation or apology.
She missed out on all that money.
But their actions limited my ability to connect with voters.
Not that she needs that money, but still, that sucks.
Voters who are actively seeking more information about my candidacy and why I was offering to serve them as President and Commander-in-Chief. This has not only happened to me, it's happened to other candidates running for various offices. Joe Kent, running for Congress in Washington State, is one I know personally of. This happens all the time, with these big tech monopolies interfering in our democracy by manipulating search results based on whatever it is that they want the American people to know about a particular candidate or issue that should be concerning to any one of us and all of us. And now recently we've learned that with the release of the Twitter files detailed by Matt Taibbi and others, high-level former FBI and CIA and other government officials were behind Hamilton 68 and their list of 644 social media accounts supposedly linked to, quote, Russian influence activities online. Now, Hamilton 68's work was widely cited as fact by institutions like Harvard and Stanford, by mainstream news organizations across the board, by members of the House of Representatives and Senate from both political parties, including the head of the Intelligence Committee. The problem is, it was false. Twitter themselves determined that the vast majority of counts that Hamilton 68 targeted on this list of 644 were, quote, neither strongly Russian nor strongly bots, end of quote. They were mostly anti-establishment, American voices from across the political spectrum. I was one of them. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton accused me, a sitting member of Congress, a soldier, and a candidate running for president, of being, quote, groomed by the Russians.
I definitely remember that.
Her baseless smear worked as intended. It was something that was repeated over and over, headline after headline, article after article, pushed online in every way. This had the harmful impact that was intended. I could give you many examples of interactions that I've had with people throughout that campaign and still today. But I remember one in particular that had an impact. Just weeks after this statement was made, I was in South Carolina at a campaign event when an elderly woman came up to me, and I could tell that she was very disturbed. She came up and she put her hands on my shoulders and she looked into my eyes, her eyes welling up, hands shaking, and she said, "Look me in the eyes. I need to know if you are working for Putin." She was serious. I couldn't believe it. I looked her straight back in the eyes and expressed to her from my heart how much I love this country, so much that I'm willing to die for it. More recently, U.S. Senator Mitt Romney accused me of treason, a crime that is punishable by death under our laws. I challenged him to back this serious allegation up with evidence. What was this based on? There was no response, no explanation, no evidence, and certainly no apology. Now, these accusations are often shrugged off as, well, hey, it's politics. People say things about each other all the time. Now, that may be easy for some of you to say, but for somebody who wears the uniform, this is serious. And it's serious not only to me, but to my fellow service members and veterans, every one of us making a decision at some point in our lives to raise our right hand, prepared and volunteering to lay our life down for this country.
Yeah, if someone said that about me after a deployment, I might punch that person right in the face. So I get where she's coming from. Like, I don't blame her. You know what I mean? Imagine you get back from a deployment and someone says some dumb shit to you like that. You might have to smack a bitch.
What does that mean in reality? It means that before every deployment, in our own hearts, we have to make peace with the possibility that we may not come home. It means writing letters to our loved ones, trying to find the words to express our love and gratitude, knowing that that may be our final goodbye. It means for those of us who do come home, doing our best every single day to honor the great sacrifices of our brothers and sisters who paid that ultimate price. This is much bigger than me or any one individual. When those who dare to challenge the establishment are targeted by this powerful conglomerate of government, corporate media, and big tech, weaponizing all that they have against the people for their own selfish gain, it has a dangerous chilling effect on free speech, and it sends a very powerful message. If you dare to challenge us, we will come after you. The more we allow this to happen, we start looking less and less like a democratic republic and more like a banana republic. Instead of a government ordained to secure these rights, we are now increasingly facing a government determined to take those rights away. George Washington warned, "For if men are to be precluded from offering their sentiments on a matter which may involve the most serious and alarming consequences that can invite the consideration of mankind, reason is of no use to us. The freedom of speech may be taken away, and dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to slaughter." We have to stop this insanity and protect these sacred freedoms, vanquish the fear and self-censorship that is now pervasive. Every one of us taking action to breathe new life into the open marketplace of ideas that is at the heart of a thriving democracy encouraging vigorous and substantive debate, encouraging people to think for themselves so we can draw our own conclusions, where we can disagree without devolving into hate, where we can respect each other as fellow Americans and treat each other with aloha. The work you have before you is critical for all of these reasons. The stakes are high. The consequences, for better or worse, will be long-lasting. And for the sake of the American people, our freedom, and the future of this country we love, I pray we can set aside our partisan differences and commit to standing together to defend the constitutional right of every American to live free. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We truly live in the greatest country in the world because of the founding principles upon which our country was created. I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, twice, both as a soldier who enlisted in the wake of 9/11, like so many Americans, as well as a member of Congress, where I served for 8 years. I take this oath seriously, and it is our Constitution that is under attack today. I first joined the Democratic Party over 20 years ago. I was 21 years old, and what I saw back then was a party that still stood for free speech. That was a big open tent party that welcomed people with different ideas, different backgrounds, different religions, that stood up for civil liberties, that fought for everyday Americans. It was a party of the little guy. Fast forward to where we are today, that party is completely unrecognizable. I left the Democratic Party because it is led by an elitist cabal of woke warmongers.
Damn.
They are driven by an insatiable greed for power, and they are willing to do whatever they deem is necessary, even the destruction of our freedom, to get what they want and to stay in power. This is the challenge and the threat behind those who are abusing their power in more brazen ways than I ever would have imagined today. I left the Democratic Party because it's led by fanatical ideologues who don't believe in freedom. They don't believe in freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, and the right of every one of us to express ourselves without fear of retribution or retaliation from those in power. They censor speech they don't like. Why and how? They say, we need to protect you from yourselves, and so we have to protect you from things that we call misinformation, disinformation, or hate speech, speech that they don't like. They undermine our civil liberties, working with powerful entities in the propaganda media and big tech. They're trying to get rid of our Second Amendment in every way possible, rejecting the very reason why our founders passed it right after the First Amendment, rejecting the reality that every one of us has a right to defend ourselves and our loved ones, and that we are the check on the abuse of power by an increasingly tyrannical government. And that is what we are facing today. They reject our Constitution that fundamentally recognizes that our freedom comes from God, no one else. I left the Democratic Party because its leaders reject this truth and are increasingly hostile towards people of faith and spirituality, actively seeking to undermine our religious freedom and the spiritual foundation of our country. They are targeting people of faith. You heard from the last speaker and others very real examples of this, how they are targeting especially Christians. They are targeting peaceful pro-life protesters. They are targeting those they deem as radical traditionalist Catholics. Thomas Jefferson said, "God who gave us life gave us liberty. Can the liberties of a nation be secure when we have removed a conviction that these liberties are the gift of God?" Of course, the answer to that is no. To recognize each other as children of God is to appreciate that every one of us belongs to God and to no one else. So no government, no person, no individual or institution has the right to take away the freedom that God has given us. This is the foundation of the social construct of the United States of America, and it is the core of who we really are. Any political party that is trying to erase the presence of God from every facet of public life and is hostile towards those who choose to worship God cannot be trusted to protect our inalienable God-given rights enshrined in the Constitution and should...
Oh, they cut her off. Man. She needs to hire a better editor. Whew. Anywho. Alright, I'm gonna go mess with this dog. I'll see y'all.